Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to try and get over the disappointment of the weekend. We're finally going to stop talking about it. We're going to look ahead as Celtic fans now onto what should be a joyous few weeks, hopefully, on the calendar for Celtic. But today we're going to be talking about something slightly more negative, which is annoying. We're going to be talking about Reo Hatate and his comments this morning to a Japanese media outlet. Listen, it's been a really tough gig for Reo Hatate coming in, and the rest of the Japanese boys who signed in January, coming in off the back of a lengthy league season in Japan to then join in the most intense part of the Scottish Premiership season. It's been a big ask and they've gave it their all, but it does catch up with players, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Reo Hatate all in today's video. Before we go any further with the video, please make sure to drop down below and hit subscribe if you haven't already. We are almost halfway through this 33k mark, which means we are one step closer to 34k on the road to the eventual 40k. So if you haven't already, please, I urge you to go down below and hit subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Hit the like button as well when you're down there, and let's get into today's video. So Reo Hatate broke onto the scene in fantastic fashion, as we all know, here at Celtic. He was a brilliant signing straight off the bat, with those goals that he scored against Rangers being the kind of highlight. That 3-0 win back in early February, it was the real sort of coming of age moment for Reo Hatate. We're all like, oh my god, what a player we've found here. He also had that spectacular goal against Hearts, and overall he's just been a fantastic wee player to watch in the midfield. I think he's turned out to be a brilliant signing for Celtic, and probably the main highlight of the January transfer window, you could say. But his time recently has been kind of, I think, overshone with bits of fatigue, and he spoke about that very openly today. I don't think that you would be telling any porkies if you said he's looked a little bit tired recently. He probably hasn't been as good or as effective as he was when he first came through the door at Celtic, but it's to be expected. And I don't want to make excuses for players not giving their all or not being good enough. That's simply not the case with Reo Hatate. I think that he is very much good enough. I think he's shown that when he walked through the door at Celtic and he played those first few games for Celtic. He's shown how good a player he is and how much of an asset he's going to be for Celtic over the coming seasons for Ange Postecoglou. He's came in and he's went into that midfield three. He's shown that he was a kind of player we probably needed in the first half of the season. And he's showed his qualities as an attacking sort of player. The goals he's scored, the goals he's made. He's definitely good enough for Celtic. You just can't blame someone when they're running out of gas a little bit at this point in the season, considering when he did come into Celtic. Now, a lot of people are ready to kind of overlook those things and start to give out the excuses that he's not good enough. I simply don't agree. I think he is. And I think these comments today have helped kind of stress how difficult it has been for the likes of him and Dyson Maeda and probably to an extent Yosuke Deguchi, who hasn't really played, but how difficult it's been for those three guys in particular. And you even look at Kyogo as well, who came in, you know, through the middle of a season in Japan as well, and to get so much effort from him, it takes a toll on them, and that's the reason we've seen the likes of Kyogo dropping off with injuries. It's the reason we've seen Maeda and Hatate look a little more tired in games recently. It's, you know, simply put, it's just human nature. You know, we can't expect, these aren't robots we've signed. You know, these are human beings who run on the same amount of energy as most other footballers. Yes, they are professional athletes, and yes, we should be expecting them to play to the highest standard and the highest fitness levels, but they're human beings. They can only play so much football in so many months. And I think that we are getting to this point in the season now where we're looking at Reo Hatate, we're listening to what he said today and going, okay, maybe he should be used sparingly from now till the end of the season. I think the game that stood out most for Reo Hatate in terms of a struggle and in terms of fatigue was that game at Ibrox. If you remember that rightly, he looked a little bit tired in that first half. He was sort of all over the place. He couldn't really keep up with the pace of the game. And I think that was the game it became extremely evident that this is a player and this is a guy who has seen as much football as they should probably see this season. I'm not saying that we now bench him and we don't use him from now till the end of the season, but I think there has to be a priority put on his conditioning, and I think there has to be a priority put on his use at Celtic and how limited that use is. Yes, we're at a very important point of the season now where we need to try and secure a league title, but we are blessed with midfielders at this club who can get us over the line, who can see us go and secure a league title. Reo Hatate, I don't think, has to be prioritised And amongst all of that, to play as many minutes as possible. You've got O'Reilly, you've got Rogic, you've got McGregor, you've got Beaton. You've got guys in and amongst a squad who can come in and do a job for us. And Hatate can still be part of that. I just think that now there has to be a sort of caution when using him. And we're going to talk about his comments in relation to that just now. So this is what Reo Hatate had to say in speaking to Sportiva of Yahoo Japan. He said, "Since my debut against Hibs, I've felt the intensity of the European game and played a number of games. The fact that I've kept getting appearances shows that the team trusts me, and it's been giving me a lot of confidence. But for what feels like the first time, I'm definitely feeling emotional and physical fatigue. It's been 3 months since I arrived in Glasgow, and getting used to a new environment on and off the pitch has been trial and error. In Japan, there were ways I could refresh myself and take a mental break, but that's difficult when you're playing so frequently. There are times where you can't make a run on goal, or you have to hold back on the attack to preserve the team's balance, and I have to recognise my fatigue." And yeah, this is one thing that I think so many people are quick to forget when we look at these guys and look at these Japanese players coming over to Scotland. It's such a culture change. It's such a difference for them. It's a massive opportunity, and for the better of their career, they're doing it. You know, they're getting the opportunity to play for one of the world's biggest clubs and put themselves on a popular stage and a more sort of seen stage. So it's for their benefit, of course, but it's also at their own sacrifice, you know, coming over here and giving up so much of what is a completely different world. You've got to remember how different the cultures are. It is almost like a different planet in Japan, with the way things work and the way the food is and the way that just the general life is. It's so different. So coming to Scotland and then having that sort of inability to maybe recharge or take a break in the same way you would back in your home country, it must take a mental toll on you, and it must take a lot of your mental fatigue. The fact that you've got to sit here and try and adjust to a new life and adjust to recovering in different ways is something that none of us sitting watching this video will probably understand. And you know, for Reo Hatate to come over here and have to do that and do it so quickly, you know, we're talking 3 months now, and I've already spoke about the intensity of this point of the season. You know, we're at the most important part of the season. For him to come over and have to do all of that amongst that, it makes it even more difficult. It increases it. And you know, the pressure he'll probably feel in amongst that is definitely going to take a toll on him and his football. So I have a great amount of respect for the likes of what Reo Hatate, Dyson Maeda and the other guys are doing. I think it's unbelievable, the effort they've been giving us, the ability they have been showing us, and amongst everything, and amongst the adjustment of new life here in Glasgow. It's crazy what he'll have to go through, and it's only right for him to feel that trial and error he speaks of, and that mental and physical fatigue. You know, travelling all that time over here to Scotland itself is enough for me. Never mind a professional athlete, and then to come and play all that football when you've probably left your family and your life behind will definitely have a mental toll on you. So it is difficult for Reo Hatate, and I think it's very understandable. I almost feel sympathetic reading into this diary entry. You throw in as well what he's been doing for the national team, and you know what he's been doing in Japan beforehand, and now continuing it here now. You know, there's so much he's got to do, and trying to balance all that while giving your best for 60,000 fans at Celtic Park is a big ask, you know, and he's trying to stand to that, and he has on many occasions. He's rose to the occasion when we've needed him to, several times now. So when you consider the sort of pressure he's found himself under and him managing to do that, it is really impressive, and I have nothing but the utmost appreciation for that. Speaking on the national team, Reo Hatate actually said, for the national team I had to go to Australia, then Japan, and then back to Scotland. It was my first call up as an overseas player, and I was confronted with the difficulty of maintaining your condition while travelling and then immediately having to get results for your team. When you're away for your team on national duty, there's a chance you can lose your position. My first day back at Celtic, there was a moment that I saw 2 balls and was clearly jet lagged, but in Europe you need to be tough enough to stay fit and fight for your position. So to start against Rangers gave me a lot of confidence. It was huge to be able to help create the equaliser. On the match sheet I didn't score a goal or record an assist, but it was a huge moment that I was able to leave my mark on the team's victory. Yeah, seeing double. You know, these are the things these guys go through, and you know, travelling. I've never been to Australia in my life, and I would struggle going over there for a holiday, never mind for football, and then to come back and play football again. It is crazy what these guys do and what they put their bodies through for the likes of Celtic. And I think that, you know, with the criticism that some people will quickly throw into Reo Hatate, they have to sit down and realise, look at the situation that they've been in, how much football they have actually played. Last season in Japan, for his club alone, he played 38 times up until his departure from Kawasaki Frontale. He's now came to Celtic, and he's played 17 times for the club. This is all from, I think the first game that he played last season was at the tail end of February 2021. So you're talking from February 2021 to right now, playing 55 games of football, all in that space of time, just over a year, 55 games. That's just for club. That's not even considering what he done at the Olympic Games, what he done for the national team at different levels as well, and international breaks. That's just club. 55 games of football in 1 year and 1 month, say roughly. You compare that with the likes of Callum McGregor, who I would say is the best midfielder in the country. He's played 47 games in just this season, so that's lesser time, and of course it's still an impressive amount of games, but it's still more football. And that's 47 games as well, just for club as well. So, you know, it's not far off it, but you think of the travelling that's went in aside Reo Hatate and doing all of this, it's really crazy. Callum McGregor hasn't had to go to Australia, to Japan, back to Scotland and all these flights, and it's still incredibly impressive. I'm not taking that away from Callum McGregor. It's unbelievable what he does as well, but I think that the pressure that Hatate must feel off of all the back of the travelling and playing for his nation and this, that, the next thing must take some... Honestly, I can't even begin to understand how that makes you feel inside your brain. Ange Postecoglou already said earlier on in the season that we would see the best out of our January signings next season when they've had that break that they probably are needing, when they've had the chance to kind of recover, recuperate and get back to full fitness and have that kind of break behind them. Hatate also spoke of that. He said, you know, after the break and a good pre-season, it might do wonders for him. And look, we've seen so many good moments out of Reo Hatate already. Next season it could be incredible, and I'm hoping it is incredible. I think that fans have to be patient, and they have to be they have to recognise the difficulties of what him and the likes of Dyson Maeda and Ideguchi and Kyogo have to go through in this culture change. It's so much bigger than we could ever imagine. There's very few Scottish people that have had to go through similar experiences that are going to be sitting watching these videos, you know what I mean? So I think that there has to be that recognition of difficulty for Reo Hatate, that understanding and that patience, because he's done nothing. He's not been that far off the mark either. He's not been incredibly bad, but with some people's reactions, you'd think that they're going to write him off already, and I think it's unbelievable. But it's a really good read today. You should read into it and see about him speaking at his time at Celtic. It's interesting, and that's my thoughts on it all. I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of this season for the likes of Hatate, but especially next season, because I think we've got one hell of a talent on our hands. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.